Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is the weekly Tottenham news review with me, leader Dorset Spur, here to talk about all the different things that have been going on over the last 7 days or so. Well, here we are again with yet another international break. Not a fan of it, got to be honest. I've said it before. For me, it's all about the club. I'm not really interested in the country, probably because I'm an England fan. So until we're in something meaningful, then I really don't follow it, if I'm being honest. So I'm not going to comment about it and all that. I just find it really annoying that it starts the league all the time. So if you're going well, you don't need the break. If you're going poorly, maybe you need a break. But when you're kind of where we are, who knows whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. The positive thing is that we don't seem to be losing just before international break now. Now we've cleared that off over the last 2 matches before it. So fingers crossed that that's what's going to happen in future and we can move on and not have to have that constant conversation about having such a poor record when these come around. So anyway, lots and lots to talk about, to be fair. Lots and lots of stuff that's kind of going on around the club and everything else. I guess one that really kind of picked out straight away was this issue of Donald Trump actually pardoning Joe Lewis for his insider trading situation. Interesting, really interesting. But then I guess when you look back at it, you think, well, I would suspect that their paths have crossed in terms of from being businessmen as such, rather than him being the president of the United States. And it's the old boys club where things work out for the best for those in the best positions, right? I don't think you or I would get a pardon if we'd have cheated on our shares or got somebody, made somebody rich on back of our knowledge. But there you go, such is life. It doesn't make any difference from a Tottenham perspective because from a Tottenham perspective, Joe Lewis handed over control to the family trust. So this is all about his family. From that point of view, they're the ones who look after the club. They're the ones doing the investment and so on. So Joe Lewis doesn't really get involved in that. So it wouldn't have had any bearing if he'd have gone to prison or not. But I would ask the question, is sending an 88-year-old man to prison really beneficial? I don't know. It's one I think there's probably a lot more deserving people to go to prison than maybe Joe Lewis. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong for sure. A little bit of good news. We've seen recently that Dejan Kulusevski has been out training on grass. How amazing would that be? What a boost it would be to have Kulu back training and playing in this team, because we are absolutely desperate for that creative spark with the ongoing injury crisis that we seem to be going through. Having Kulu back would be such a massive boost. But a lot of pressure to put on a single player, bearing in mind he's been out for a significant amount of time for what was initially called a knock. So a lot of work's going to have to be done for him to actually get back his fitness, his touch, his confidence, and so on. We've seen a lot of that with Bentancur coming back from his injury, how long it's taken him to really start to have an impact. I would argue that he's kind of getting a lot more back to where he was. Still not quite there in my view, but he is kind of getting back a little bit. He obviously had the second injury after coming back, which wasn't great. So I think even if we do get Kulu back before too long, I'm not sure the impact that he's gonna have, and I think they'll probably need to be a little bit careful with him, because obviously what they don't want is to him come back and then be back out again, because that would be an absolute disaster. Of course, on top of that, we have now seen also Radu Dragushin is now back training. They had a behind the closed doors match for him to get out and play. We saw Maddison was going and watching that game and so on. So be interesting to see how he's getting on and how he would fit into this team. There's lots of question marks about him in the Ange Postecoglou setup. But it would be a welcomed situation having him come back, because bear in mind we have been playing our defensive midfielder as a centre back at times because we have been short. So it would be good to have him back and see how he can progress. Still a very young man, still needs time and so on. So I think, I think the jury is still out as to whether he is a good buy or not a good buy. It'll be interesting to see, as I say, how he progresses under Thomas Frank, how he kind of learns and develops and so on. Again, another very long injury that's taken him out for a long time. So he will need time to get back. He will need time to get back to his best and so on. So, but being a young man, hopefully that gives him the ability to really overcome this and actually shine for us. I was impressed with him when he first came. I think he struggled a little bit with the pace of the game and so on, and the expectation when your other centre backs are as good as Romero, kind of his passing abilities, his forward play, and then on top of that you've got Mickey van der Ven, running at 100 mile an hour and so on. He can't be either of those players. He can only be his own player. And when you look at players like Kevin Danso, who's neither of those two, he's done okay. He's come into the squad and done really okay. And so maybe Radu Dragushin can be that type of player if he can't be either of the others. But we'll see. We'll see how he pans out. It's just good to see the end of another injury coming. So if we can get Kolo back and get Dragushin back, that's two more coming in. But at the same time of that, we've obviously got another two still out. Lucas Bergvall been sent home by Sweden because of his concussion injury. Not sure he really should have been sent in the first place, but I guess they like to have a look at themselves in their own medical departments, don't they? Just to make sure that the players are, truly injured and so on. I don't know. But it's a bit of a worry, I guess, in the fact that he was supposed to have missed 2 games through this injury. He's missed those 2 games and still doesn't feel right. So that's a bit of a worry going forward, especially as he's a young man and so on. And you don't want to see anybody suffering from head trauma through playing a sport, Maybe it's just precautionary. Hopefully it's just precautionary. And hopefully this international break will give him that extra week to kind of get over it and feel that he's ready to come back in time for the next batch of matches, which are getting harder and harder for sure. And then on top of that, of course, we now have Muani out as well, injured. I'll just kind of update my list so I don't miss anything. Muani going out injured with a fractured jaw. So I was at the game. I did see him go down. Didn't see what actually happened. But when he went off half time, everyone was like, "What's going on? Why would you take him off? He's been, he's getting back to himself. He's having an impact. Why are you taking him off and not taking Richarlison off?" Well, now we know why. Injury based. And of course, it depends on what media you're kind of looking at as to whether that's going to be a few weeks or a few months, depending on whether he does need surgery or doesn't need surgery. I've seen conflicting reports about all of that. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see and see what the official verdict is from the club when they actually come out and say what's going on. Obviously, it's helpful from that perspective that there is an international break now, because it gives another week for him to kind of start to recover. You're not missing him for so long. But yeah, it's a really disappointing scenario, bearing in mind he's come in and he's not been playing, he's not been training very well. Then he gets injured in training, and that keeps him out. Now he's coming back and he's been injured again. It's a really difficult scenario, isn't it, for these players? Stop, start, and so on. He's only on loan, so we don't know whether we would need to keep him or not keep him. We haven't seen the best of him yet. But he clearly is a talent. You know, he is a talented footballer. It's just whether it's going to work at Spurs, because you can be as talented as you like. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. We've seen it all too often with players, Lo Celso and Ndombele, Brian Hill, all these players that have huge promise that just never works at Spurs. And so that's a real disappointment, which kind of brings me on a little bit, I guess, to Yves Bissouma, who there are reports that Galatasaray are still in contact trying to get that player. They want that player. Of course, he's out of contract in the summer. And there are apparently several other Premier League clubs interested in Yves Bissouma and are keen to take him. I guess from our point of view, it's another disappointment because you're going to lose a player on a free in the summer, because obviously if he's not fit enough in January, you're not going to be able to sell him. So you're going to get nothing out of that as well. We only paid something like 25 million for him, which, and I say only 25 million, wouldn't mind having that in the bank, but we only paid, say, 25 million for him, but he's going to walk away for free. Again, another poor bit of business from Tottenham, in my view. And again, a player who offered so much promise, but it just never really materialised. We've never seen the player that Brighton had. We've never seen him really shine for Spurs. There's been glimpses, but never anything like the commitment that we would really want to see. And talking about commitment, it was good to see Robbo, our own Graham Roberts, getting a legacy England cap in the before the England game on Thursday. Congratulations to Graham, a top man. I've met him, I've interviewed him, and he is a really good guy and a proper Spurs fan as well. Believe it or not, his family are all Spurs as well, and he's got a real connection with the club. So. Great to see him being recognised. I'd like to say top man with some great stories. A really nice guy, and congratulations to him. I did want to just touch on the Man United game, just because it has been within the last sort of 7 days. And the kind of big thing I wanted to pick out about it was the talk about all the boos. Especially the one when Xavi Simons went off and Matisse Tell came on. There was a lot made of that at the time from lots of different sources, certainly in the media, saying that Tottenham fans aren't happy and Matisse Tell getting booed and so on. I absolutely do not believe that was the case. The boos were more about the fact that substitution felt like we were taking away our only opportunity for any creativity in this team. Thomas Frank is under huge pressure in terms of the quality of the football that we're playing. Fans always want to play the Tottenham way, but at the same time as that, they always want to win. So if you're playing pragmatic and winning, that's one thing. If you're playing pragmatic and losing, that's another. If you're playing exciting football, that's great. But if you're losing, it's not good. So either way, you can't really win. What you need is the real balance from it. And until he's got a full squad of players, and we see the chopping and changing of transfers and so on, we will never really know whether Thomas Frank is able to provide football the Tottenham way, or whether he is just a pragmatic type of coach. I personally would like to see us get that time and see where we go, and kind of take it from there and make a decision from there. I think we are far too early in the game with far too many injury problems to even make a reasonable assessment. The fact that we are not losing games continuously is a good sign. Although, there are some fixtures coming up that will be a real test for this squad, especially being as depleted as it is. So, I just, from my point of view, I just wanted to make the point that, I didn't feel that the boos were about Matisse Tell. I believe the boos were about the change in players, like losing Xavi Simons. There were players on the pitch that were offering far less than Xavi Simons, and I think that was where the frustration came from. Ultimately, it did feel like a defeat at the end. But there were patches of that game. I know other people talked about it and said it was really boring and so on. But I did feel that there were patches in that game where we actually did turn it on. And I thought towards the end, everything was going our way. The momentum was with us. And if only we had, remained calm enough at the end just to see that last corner out, then, it would have been a really, really good result. And I think we'd have all been saying that it was a decent performance overall in patches. It wasn't great the whole time. We lost our momentum, certainly after the first sort of 20 minutes in the game. And then we seemed to struggle. And Odebert, Odebert made a real difference. Tell made a real difference. And so it does show you that if you get the right subs in at the right time, they can have an impact. And maybe that's how they're developing. I don't know. Tell and Odebert obviously know each other from the French squad and so on. So it'll be interesting to see if that can develop. I do feel Tell has a lot to offer, but he's a 19-year-old kid still. People forget it. They talk about Mikey Moore. He needs to go out on loan. He needs to kind of learn a little bit and bulk up and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. He's 2 years, a year or so younger than Matisse Tell, who everyone expects to be the next Harry Kane. And Harry Kane is a 1 in a million. You'll never see a player of that quality coming through the ranks again, in my view. It'll be a really interesting find if we can find another player of that sort of level. So for me, it was a reasonable result, probably what was deserved. I didn't think Man United did enough. I felt they were very defensive and so on. But then I felt that we didn't do enough either. So I'll accept the draw. Of course, up next we've got the scum of the earth, and that will be a really, really difficult game. Away from home, not got a great record there, so that's going to be really, really difficult. And then following that, we've got PSG, so it don't get any easier. And I suspect if we lose both of those games, there will be another set of outpouring about Thomas Frank and whether he is the right man or not. Is he the right man? Only time's going to tell, but you won't be able to tell that after half a season. I really, really believe we need some consistency in this club to ever see where we're going to go. Be interesting for sure. Anyway, listen, I've rambled on enough, as I always do. 20 minutes of me just waffling. But let me finish off by saying thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate it. If you've liked the video, give it a thumbs up. No comments coming, so I must be talking good stuff. You must all be agreeing with me and think that I've got the right idea here. So interesting that there's been no comments over the last couple of videos. If you don't subscribe to Chris's channel, please do consider doing that. It doesn't cost you anything. I say this every time. It's not going to cost you a thing. All it's going to do is help the algorithm for Chris and let him know that his channel is still growing, which is what it's all about for content creators to know you're doing the right thing and people like what you do. So, thanks very much as always, and I'll see you on the next one, and I'll always say, up the Spurs.